Without legs, without eyelids, without any expression resembling ours, snakes carry a presence that paralyzes. Long before they were feared or revered, they had already mastered an art that few groups have perfected so well, surviving almost without change, while the entire planet changed around them. The history of snakes begins in a much older world, among small, elongated reptiles that explored crevices, burrows, and tight environments. In those spaces, a slender body could be worth more than swift legs. Evolution began to favor flexibility, silence, and access to areas where other predators simply could not enter. Losing limbs was not an evolutionary defect, it was a radical specialization. By giving up their limbs, these ancestors transformed their bodies into a complete tool for locomotion. They gained access to the underground, dense vegetation, and hidden refuges. What seems like a limitation to us became an absolute advantage for those who needed to go unnoticed. Some fossils preserve a fascinating stage of this transformation. Ancient snakes still had remnants of hind legs, showing that the change did not happen all at once. For millions of years, nature tested combinations, discarded excesses, and refined structures until arriving at the long, articulated, and highly efficient form we know today. A strong hypothesis suggests that part of this evolution occurred underground. In narrow burrows, legs could hinder more than help. A long, muscular body allowed for better pushing, anchoring, and advancing. In this scenario, the snake was born as a specialist of the invisible, shaped to live where light barely reached and mistakes were costly. Another hypothesis points to coastal margins and shallow aquatic environments, where elongated bodies could also provide an advantage. Perhaps different lineages explored similar routes in distinct contexts. The essential point is to understand that the origin of snakes was not simple. It was a long negotiation between environment, anatomy, and evolutionary opportunity. As the body changed, the head also transformed. The skulls of snakes became extraordinarily mobile, with bones and joints capable of enhancing prey manipulation. This allowed them to swallow food that was too large for similarly sized animals. It was not an anatomical exaggeration. It was a practical solution to avoid wasting any valuable meal. Instead of concentrating strength in its limbs, the snake distributed power throughout almost its entire body. Hundreds of vertebrae, many ribs, and segmented muscles transformed each segment into a motor. That's why it can climb, swim, dig, constrict, and move forward with tremendous precision. Its mobility does not depend on limbs. It depends on an entire body architecture. The scales have also been refined as survival instruments. The ventral scales help with traction and control over varied surfaces. Others protect against abrasion, water loss, and light impacts. What seems like mere covering functions as a multifunctional system, adapted to the desert, forest, swamp, mountain, and aquatic environments. Along this trajectory, snakes lost structures that we associate with vigilance, such as movable eyelids and external ears. But the loss did not mean fragility. It meant specialization. A constantly protected eye and a sensory system oriented towards vibrations, heat, and chemistry show that evolution does not seek comfort. It seeks efficiency in the real environment. Perhaps no gesture represents a snake better than the flick of its tongue. By capturing particles from the air and soil and bringing them to the vomeronasal organ, it literally tastes the environment. It tracks direction, presence, proximity, and recent passage. It is a chemical reading of the world, crucial for hunting, defense, reproduction, and navigation in its territory. The venom also did not appear fully formed. It gradually developed from ancestral secretions that began to affect pain, coagulation, muscles, and the nervous system. In some lineages, this chemistry became a highly sophisticated weapon. In others, it never became central. This reveals an important principle. Evolution does not follow a fixed destiny. It merely takes advantage of advantageous paths. Before many lineages refined the venom, others perfected constriction. For a long time, it was thought that they killed only by asphyxiation or breaking bones. Today we know that the effect is usually faster and more efficient, interrupting circulation. Once again, The snake wins less by brutality and more by an extremely precise mechanism. When major ecological crises hit the planet, including the collapse that ended the era of non-avian dinosaurs, snakes already had a decisive advantage: versatility. Small, discreet, and energy efficient, they managed to survive severe changes. Surviving was not just about persistence, it was about transforming gaps left by the catastrophe into new evolutionary opportunities. After these crises, diversification accelerated. Serpentine lineages occupied continents, islands, valleys, and river basins. Each environment imposed different pressures of temperature, humidity, prey type, and predator risk. The result was an explosion of forms and strategies. Snakes ceased to be merely successful. They became one of the great examples of vertebrate adaptation. In the treetops, the elongated body showed another advantage: distributing weight with enormous delicacy. Tree snakes can explore narrow branches, reach nests, and pursue prey on risky routes. Where a heavier animal would fall, they find support. Where a hurried predator would reveal its presence, they blend in with the vegetation itself. In the desert, the logic of survival changes completely. There, it is necessary to conserve water, avoid overheating, and act at very specific moments. Desert snakes have adjusted their color, activity timing, and movement patterns to this harsh environment. The same body that functioned underground and in the forest also began to serve extreme heat, scarcity, and absolute patience. In swamps, lagoons, and flooded margins, other lineages approached fresh water. The buoyancy reduced body weight, expanded ambush possibilities, and brought vulnerable prey closer. In these scenarios, the snake is not just a hunter of the edge. It operates at the living boundary between land and water, efficiently exploiting both dimensions. In fields and savannas, the challenge is different. It's not enough to be silent. One must be quick, camouflaged, and able to read vibrations in open areas. Some species have become specialists in abundant rodents, others in amphibians, eggs, or lizards. The exposed landscape has increased the cost of error, and the evolutionary response has been precision in attack, escape, and concealment. Few images better summarize the adaptive potential of this group than the snakes that returned to the ocean. With flattened tails, efficient diving, and behavior adjusted to the coastal environment, they proved that the lineage was not confined to dry land. The snake relearned the sea without abandoning the body shape that made it so successful. In Asian forests, some species have taken specialization to an almost unbelievable level. By flattening their bodies and controlling their descent, they are able to glide between trees. They do not fly like birds, but transform their descent into directed movement. This shows that the evolution of snakes has never been confined to a single bodily or ecological solution. Other lineages have gone in the opposite direction and bet on gigantism. Huge bodies allow for dominating large prey, reducing vulnerability, and enduring long periods without eating. This size incurs costs in heating, mobility, and reproduction, but in certain environments, it is worth it. Giants demonstrate that the serpentine body works both at the minimum and the colossal. Not all snakes lay eggs. In cold regions, some lineages have evolved to retain embryos in their bodies and give birth to live young. This strategy helps to better control the temperature of development and increases the chances of reproductive success. Once again, the basic form remained, but the ecological solution changed completely. When we observe snakes on a planetary scale, one conclusion becomes clear. Losing their limbs did not diminish them. It freed them to explore almost any environment with few structural changes. Their body became a universal platform for adaptation. In this lies their ancestral strength. Functional flexibility applied with a rare degree of ecological efficiency over time. But understanding where they came from still doesn't explain why they became such precise hunters. The real answer lies within. In the movable skull, in the chemistry of the venom, in the scent-detecting tongue, in the crushing muscles, and in the metabolism that supports long waits. Now, the documentary delves into the biological machinery of snakes. After conquering such different environments, snakes have refined their own anatomy to an impressive level. On the outside, they appear simple. On the inside, They are a set of extremely specialized solutions. The head, for example, is not rigid like ours. It has been transformed into a movable, precise mechanism, adapted to capture, hold, and swallow whole prey. Many people believe that the snake dislocates its jaw. In fact, what happens is even more interesting. The lower parts of the mouth work with unusual flexibility, aided by elastic ligaments and movable joints. This allows them to manipulate prey that is too large for any reptile of similar size. It is not an anatomical exaggeration, but rather a feeding efficiency taken to the extreme. Not all venomous snakes use the same system. Some have grooved rear teeth, better suited for small prey and prolonged bites. Others have fixed front fangs, ideal for quick action. The more specialized vipers carry long, retractable fangs, like biological needles. Each shape emerged in response to the type of prey, the attack strategy, and the occupied environment. The venom is also far from being a simple substance. It can combine proteins, enzymes, and peptides capable of affecting muscles, coagulation, tissues, pain, and the nervous system. In some species, the formula immobilizes quickly. In others, it initiates slower, destructive processes. The goal is not just to kill. It is to reduce risk, prevent escape, and make capture energetically advantageous for the predator. One of the most sophisticated weapons of snakes is not in their fangs, but in their tongue. By collecting chemical particles and bringing them to the vomeronasal organ, it builds an invisible map of the environment. As the tips of the tongue pick up signals from different sides, the animal can compare intensities and deduce direction. This is how it tracks prey, partners, rivals, and recent paths. In some lineages, chemical perception has been complemented by another extraordinary sense: the reading of heat. Structures called loreal pits detect infrared radiation emitted by warm bodies. This allows for locating prey even in near-total darkness. It is not common vision. It is a way of interpreting subtle thermal differences, transforming body heat into hunting information. The vision of snakes varies much more than common sense imagines. Some rely heavily on movement, others combine moderate vision with heat and chemicals, and others perform better visually at certain times or in certain environments. The shape of the pupil often reflects lifestyle as well. There is no single model of visual perception. The whole group is too diverse for that. Without external ears, they do not hear like mammals and birds. But that does not mean an absence of sound perception. Many snakes detect vibrations transmitted through the ground and the structure they are resting on. This system is sufficient to detect the approach of large animals, prey activity, and disturbances around them. The world of the snake is made less of voices and more of subtle physical signals. The serpentine movement is a refined study of applied physics. Muscle waves travel through the body and push segments against irregularities in the terrain, converting friction into progress. Each surface demands a different solution. Therefore, crawling is not a simple or repetitive gesture. It is a constant sequence of biomechanical adjustments distributed across dozens or hundreds of body segments at the same time. There are several modes of locomotion among snakes. Lateral undulation works well on many terrains. Concertina movement helps in tight spaces, alternating anchoring and advancing. Heavy constrictors can use rectilinear progression, moving their bodies with almost no wide curves. This shows that an elongated body does not impose monotony. It allows for highly specialized motor repertoires. In unstable and overheated sands, some species have developed an impressive solution: sidewinding. In this pattern, the body touches the ground at few points and moves sideways, reducing friction and thermal exposure. It seems strange to us, but it perfectly addresses a real physical problem. The snake changes its body language to remain efficient where other patterns would fail. Climbing trees requires a different type of control. The serpent needs to distribute weight, create anchor points, and transfer force without losing stability. On narrow branches, any mistake can mean falling and exposure. Still, several species dominate this environment with surprising elegance. In them, the body functions simultaneously as a hand, lever, rope, and support, all integrated into a single movement. In water, the equation changes again. The wave body encounters less resistance than on land, and buoyancy helps reduce the cost of movement. Aquatic and semi-aquatic species take advantage of this to ambush, escape, explore shores, and cross long flooded areas. For them, water is not an obstacle. It is a natural extension of a body already prepared to overcome resistance efficiently. Large snakes often resort to an almost straight-line advance when body weight makes certain undulations less practical. In this mode, the muscles and ventral scales slowly move the body forward with impressive discretion. It seems like a simple movement, but it requires fine coordination between skin, ribs, and musculature. Even slowness, when well applied, can become a refined form of predatory efficiency. The camouflage of snakes does not depend only on color. It relies on pattern, texture, immobility, and the exact choice of the spot where the body will be hidden. Some resemble dead leaves, others look like branches, roots, sand, or moss. The best camouflage is not the most striking, but rather the one that deceives both prey and predator at the same time. Disappearing is often their main way of surviving. The bite is the perfect sum of waiting and explosion. Compressed muscles store energy and release it all in a fraction of a second. In many venomous species, the attack is followed by an almost immediate retreat, reducing the risk of counterattack. The snake does not need to prolong the fight. It just needs to hit the right moment, apply the biological weapon, and let the effect complete the process. In constrictors, the logic is different. Success depends on positioning the body correctly and adjusting the pressure with each reaction of the prey. Modern studies show that circulatory collapse can occur much earlier than a slow asphyxiation. This makes the process more efficient than previously thought. Once again, snakes impress not by excessive brute force, but by extremely refined biomechanics. Swallowing an entire prey requires impressive adaptations. The trachea can maintain breathing while the mouth is occupied. The bones reorganize, the tissues stretch, and the digestive tract goes into maximum activity. The body alternates between long periods of conservation and intense metabolic bursts. This allows for taking advantage of rare food events without relying on frequent meals like many other predators. This ability to wait is linked to metabolism. Many snakes can go a long time without eating because they expend energy very carefully. They do not need to patrol the environment all day long. They can remain still, observing, sensing, and conserving. In habitats where food appears irregularly, this physiological patience becomes a crucial advantage. For a snake, waiting is also a way to hunt. Living in a narrow body required a complete reorganization of the position of the internal organs. Lungs, heart, liver, and intestines occupy arrangements adapted to the elongated shape. In several species, one lung predominates while the other is reduced. Every centimeter needs to be utilized without compromising flexibility or digestion. This confirms that the snake is not just a legless lizard, but a widely remodeled anatomical design. Shedding skin is another essential process. The molt allows for growth, renewal of the outer layer, and removal of certain superficial parasites. Before it, the eyes become dull and vision may temporarily worsen, increasing the animal's caution. Afterwards, the body emerges with renewed brightness. This phenomenon, surrounded by symbolism in many cultures, is primarily a physiological necessity for continuous maintenance. Not every snake wants to bite. Many prefer to warn first. Open hoods, rattles, hisses, body flattening, and intimidating postures are clear defensive signs. Attacking a large animal involves the risk of injury, and this applies to them as well. Biting usually occurs when escape has failed or when the pressure is immediate. Understanding these warnings is essential to reduce accidents. Some lineages have gone even further and transformed their own bodies into bait. The tip of the tail can mimic a worm, a larva, or small, attractive movements for birds and lizards. When the prey approaches to the ideal distance, the attack happens. This reveals that hunting in snakes does not rely solely on strength or venom. It also depends on manipulating attention and exploiting the impulses of the other animal. Reproduction also breaks down cliches. Males can compete for females in ritualized combats, where strength and balance matter more than lethal aggression. Pheromones guide complex encounters, and certain species even show care for eggs or nests. This shows that the behavior of snakes is more diverse than the caricature of the cold, automatic predator suggests. After entering the biological machine of snakes, the next stage is inevitable. Which species have pushed these tools to the limit? In different parts of the planet, some have become so venomous, so fast, so large, or so stealthy that they have gained legendary reputations. But behind the fame, there is context. The next part delves into the territory of the most terrifying snakes on Earth. When we think of the scariest snakes in the world, the impulse is to imagine only venom and death. But the true power of this group lies in the variety of extremes that evolution has produced. Some terrify with their chemistry, others with their size, others with their speed, camouflage, or behavior. Human fear was born precisely from this rare combination of silence, efficiency, and unpredictability. The Naja reel occupies a special place in the human imagination because it embodies almost everything we associate with power. It is large, venomous, intelligent, and capable of raising part of its body to an impressive height. Moreover, it often feeds on other snakes. Its defensive posture seems deliberate, almost calculated, reinforcing the feeling that in its presence, the intruder is not ignored, but directly assessed. The black mamba represents another type of threat. Less monumental than the king cobra, it impresses with its speed, attack range, and extremely dangerous neurotoxic venom without quick treatment. Its fame has been amplified by legends that portray it as an unrelenting pursuer of humans. In reality, it usually tries to flee first. The danger increases when the encounter happens too close or without an escape route. Few snakes symbolize the difference between potential and real risk, as well as the inland taipan. Its venom ranks among the most potent ever measured, but the animal lives in remote areas and avoids human contact whenever possible. This highlights an essential point. The most toxic snake is not always the one that poses the greatest threat to people. Ecology, behavior, and access to treatment completely change the dimension of danger. Some of the most relevant snakes for human health are much less famous than the big stars of documentaries. The saw-scaled viper is a striking example. Small, discreet, and efficient, it lives in areas where people walk, work, and sleep close to the ground. Its impact does not come from a legendary appearance, but from the frequency of encounters. In risk biology, proximity can be more important than fame. The Russell's viper confirms this logic. Robust, well-camouflaged, and present in landscapes altered by humans, it is associated with many accidents in certain regions of Asia. Its case reveals how popular perception often fails. The most dangerous snakes for rural communities are not always the most cinematic. Often, they are precisely the ones that share territory with crops, trails, and densely populated areas. The Gaboon viper impresses in another way. Its heavy body, almost perfect camouflage, and enormous fangs make it a portrait of absolute ambush. It does not rely on theatrical speed. It depends on completely disappearing until the last moment. When it appears, it is already too late for the prey. Its image summarizes a fundamental truth about frightening snakes. Many of them seem more dangerous when they hardly seem to exist at all. In the Americas, few snakes inspire as much respect as the surucucu. Large, powerful, and associated with dense forest environments, it represents the archetype of the viper that almost no one sees, but that everyone fears encountering. Its size and venom reinforce the aura of danger, but its true strength lies in the environment it occupies. A forest floor where human perception easily fails. As jararakas show how ecological success can greatly increase the risk of encounters with people. Several species of this group are able to occupy forest edges, crops, wetland areas, and altered environments. This makes them especially relevant in tropical regions. Their fame did not arise by chance. It was born from indirect coexistence with human activities and the potency of a venom capable of causing serious harm when treatment is delayed. Corals introduce a fascinating element into the universe of fear: the visual warning. Their contrasting colors serve as a signal that something there should be avoided. Over time, other non-venomous species have evolved similar patterns and have come to benefit from this reputation. It is an extraordinary case of mimicry. The snake does not rely solely on venom or strike. It also uses the evolutionary memory of the predators around. In the ocean, danger takes on another aesthetic. Sea snakes rank among the most venomous on the planet, yet many rarely come into direct conflict with humans. Still, the idea of such an animal swimming silently beneath the surface evokes a different kind of fear, almost ancestral. They remind us that the dominion of snakes is not limited to land. Even in the ocean, evolution has carried their efficiency into extreme territories. The bushmaster represents an almost mathematical version of ambush. Its body remains motionless for long periods, while its tail mimics small animals to attract the right victim. When the ideal distance is reached, the attack is instantaneous. Few snakes demonstrate as clearly how economy of movement can be more lethal than pursuit. In it, the body hardly moves, but the entire strategy is already in action. The boomslang breaks another common prejudice. Many people associate danger with thick bodies, wide heads, and intimidating postures. It proves that this is not enough. Tree-dwelling, slender, and visually less threatening, it has potent venom and a lifestyle focused on the treetops. Its psychological impact arises from the breaking of expectations. Danger is not only on the forest floor. It can also observe from above. Some snakes are frightening precisely because they appear too beautiful. The eyelash viper combines striking colors, an almost ornamental appearance, and ambush behavior. Its look deceives the human eye, which is used to associating threat with ugliness or evident aggression. In this case, elegance does not soften the danger. On the contrary, it reinforces the idea that in nature, predatory efficiency can take visually stunning forms and still be profoundly lethal. Few snakes reveal the sophistication of evolutionary deception as disturbingly as the spider-tailed viper. The tip of its body mimics the movement of a small arthropod and attracts birds directly into the death zone. This is not mere coincidence. It is natural selection refining the very concept of a trap. The snake does not chase its prey. It manipulates their attention and decision. The tentacled serpent seems unlikely even by the standards of this group. Living in the water, it explores predictable reflections of fish to anticipate exactly where the prey will flee. This means that the attack depends not only on muscular speed, but also on the ability to induce a reaction and position itself before it happens. Here, the serpent not only responds to the behavior of the prey, it shapes it to its advantage. As flying cobras rarely make it onto the lists of the most dangerous to humans, but they are certainly among the most perplexing. The very idea of a snake coming off a branch and controlling its own trajectory in the air breaks very deep mental categories. Part of human fear arises exactly from this. When an animal violates what we considered impossible for its body shape and way of life. Among the giants, the anaconda occupies an almost mythical space. Its size, its affinity for flooded environments, and its ability to disappear beneath the surface have fueled legends for centuries. Although exaggerated reports are part of this fame, the real basis is already impressive. A gigantic body hidden in murky water is enough to trigger a very primitive fear, that of something enormous waiting invisibly in the wrong place. The reticulated python takes this fascination with giants even further. In many cases, it is the leading contender for the title of the longest snake in the world. Its monumental body allows it to handle large prey and explore dense areas with unexpected discretion. As with the anaconda, its reputation mixes facts, amplified accounts, and human imagination. But there is no need to exaggerate. Reality is already enough to impress. When a giant snake consumes a bulky prey, the scene seems to challenge our notion of scale. But everything there is supported by specialized anatomy, muscular strength, and powerful digestion. The true awe is not just visual, it is energetic. A single feeding event can sustain the animal for a long time, justifying the risk, the mechanical expenditure, and the patience that preceded the capture. The current giants already seem to have come out of legend, but the past held something even greater. Titanoboa lived on a warmer planet and demonstrated how far the serpentine form could go under certain environmental conditions. It is not just a paleontological curiosity. It is proof that the lineage of snakes has the potential for extremes far beyond what we see today. Its name resonates because it expands our notion of the possible. Despite their reputation, most dangerous snakes do not hunt humans and do not waste venom in unnecessary confrontations. A large part of the accidents arises from unexpected encounters, reckless approaches, attempts to capture, or impulsive reactions. This does not diminish the real risk posed by these species. It merely puts it into perspective. Snakes can be extremely dangerous, but almost always under very specific and understandable circumstances. The global drama of snake bites does not focus on major internet spectacles, but on rural communities, isolated areas, and populations with precarious access to healthcare. There, the problem is not just the animal, it is time. Minutes and hours can separate recovery from tragedy. Therefore, the danger of snakes also reveals social inequality, medical distance, and failures in public infrastructure. Many accidents could be reduced with simple measures: adequate lighting, protection for feet and legs, attention to the ground, respect for burrows, stones, and logs, and never trying to kill or capture a snake on your own. Prevention does not eliminate the majesty of these animals, but replaces panic with practical intelligence. And that matters, because informed fear protects much more than reckless courage. After crossing the territory of the most feared snakes on the planet, a question arises that is greater than fear. What if they disappeared? Behind the fangs, the venom, and the dark fame, there is a silent and decisive ecological function. The next section moves away from the fright and delves into a deeper truth. Many biomes directly depend on the continuous presence of these predators. After getting to know the most feared snakes, it's time to face a less spectacular but much more important truth. In numerous ecosystems, they function as silent regulators. One of their most valuable functions is controlling rodent populations, reducing agricultural losses, pressure on seeds, disease transmission, and imbalances that would spread throughout the landscape. In forests, snakes exert predatory pressure on very different groups. Some capture rodents, while others consume birds, eggs, amphibians, lizards, and even other snakes. This prevents a few species from dominating the available resources too much. When intermediate predators disappear, entire chains become disorganized. The balance does not depend solely on the large hunters. It also relies on these discrete controllers scattered throughout the jungle. In fields and savannas, where small mammals can multiply rapidly, snakes play an even clearer role. They hunt close to the ground, operate at varied times, and expend relatively little energy. This gives them an advantage in environments where prey abundance changes with the seasons. Removing this link can trigger population increases that are difficult to contain later by artificial means. Even in deserts, where every resource is precious, snakes help maintain stability. They take advantage of the nocturnal activity of rodents and lizards during a time when other predators are less efficient. Thus, they convert short windows of movement into constant ecological control. In such austere landscapes, any population explosion can quickly jeopardize what little exists. The snake helps prevent this excess. In flooded areas, many snakes connect two worlds at the same time. They can hunt in water and rest on land, or vice versa. They feed on amphibians, fish, crustaceans, and small vertebrates, helping to redistribute energy among banks, pools, channels, and floodplains. Where there is high productivity, there is also a risk of overabundance. Versatile predators like these snakes help to buffer extremes and maintain functional dynamics. Coastal ecosystems can also depend on the presence of specialized snakes. In mangroves and brackish edges, they face tides, mud, variable salinity, and prey adapted to these challenging conditions. By doing so, they become part of a sensitive ecological gear, moderating the abundance of some groups and helping to maintain balance in areas already pressured by human occupation and climate change. In the sea, the ecological function continues. Sea snakes participate in complex food webs, consuming fish and other coastal organisms, while also serving as a resource for a few predators adapted to deal with them. Their presence helps to distribute pressure on specific prey. In systems already threatened by warming, fishing, and pollution, losing this link could mean an even more vulnerable reef. In islands, the ecological impact of snakes can become even more evident. In limited spaces, any predator exerts a proportionately greater effect on birds, lizards, and small mammals. When the snake is native, this often plays a part in an ancient balance. But when a species is artificially introduced, the same group can cause rapid collapses. The ecological context changes everything. In mountainous and cold regions, snakes show that their importance does not belong only to the tropics. Even with seasonal activity and short warming windows, they continue to regulate small vertebrates and serve as food for larger predators. The ecological rhythm is different, more restricted, and climate-dependent, but the role of the group remains. Even in the cold, the snake continues to be a functional link in the system. Beneath the soil, the influence of snakes is even less perceived. Burrowing species explore tight environments, consume underground organisms, and help connect the world above to the one below. Their presence limits less visible but ecologically relevant populations. This reveals something important. The role of snakes is not restricted to the landscapes we see. It also operates at hidden levels of the environmental structure. When a snake removes a rodent from the environment, it does not just eliminate an isolated prey. It potentially reduces damage to seeds, food contamination, nest predation, and competition for other resources. This effect may seem small on an individual scale, but it becomes enormous when spread over months and years. Many ecological and economic benefits occur without being noticed, precisely because they function before the collapse. Therefore, in various rural landscapes, snakes are part of a natural biological control that predates any modern technology. They do not solve all problems on their own, but act as a constant brake on opportunistic populations. When native predators are eliminated out of indiscriminate fear, the imbalance is often later corrected with poisons, high costs, and even worse ecological impacts on the rest of the fauna. Snakes are not just predators. They also feed numerous other species, especially when young. Birds of prey, mammals, large lizards, and even other snakes depend on them in different contexts. This means that their ecological importance operates in two directions. They control lower levels of the food chain and sustain higher levels. Removing this link weakens much more than just the population of a single predator. All predation is also the circulation of matter and energy. By capturing, digesting, and excreting, the snake participates in the flow of nutrients within the ecosystem. This may seem like a small detail, but ecology is built precisely on these details repeated thousands of times. The predator does not exist outside of the environment. It modifies the behavior of prey, redistributes biomass, and interferes with the physical and biological functioning of the landscape. Imagining a biome without snakes helps to gauge their importance. In many places, the absence of these predators would favor outbreaks of rodents, changes in populations of lizards and amphibians, a reduction of food for raptors, and difficult-to-predict cascading changes. Ecosystems rarely collapse for a single reason, but they lose stability when too many silent pieces are removed without almost anyone noticing. The ecological force of snakes appears even when they are in the wrong place. Introduced species outside their natural range can disrupt entire chains, reducing birds, mammals, and other groups that never evolved under that predatory pressure. This does not turn snakes into villains. It merely shows that the same organism that balances a native system can disorganize another when artificially taken there. Therefore, protecting native snakes does not contradict controlling invasive populations. They are distinct tasks within the same ecological logic. Conserving means maintaining legitimate evolutionary relationships in operation. Controlling invasives means preventing artificial relationships from destroying a local system. Confusing these two things leads to serious mistakes. Science needs to be precise because the impact of these animals is too great for simplistic answers. The reproduction of snakes also follows the rhythm of the biomes. Rain, temperature, prey availability, and shelter quality influence encounters, egg-laying, and the survival of the hatchlings. This means that their ecological presence is not constant in the same way throughout the year. It pulses with the seasons. When the climate changes abruptly, this entire biological calendar can be compromised. Some species invest more than one might think in the initial phase of their offspring. Pythons can incubate eggs using their own bodies, and certain cobras protect the nest for a period. This care increases the chance of success in environments where temperature, humidity, and predators pose a high risk. It also dismantles the caricature of the snake as an automatic machine. In many cases, there is strategy, investment, and real protection. In cold climates, viviparity can be decisive. By keeping embryos inside the body, the female protects development against sudden thermal variations and better chooses the moments for warming. This allows certain lineages to occupy niches where exposed eggs would have less success. Reproduction, in this case, is not just the continuity of the species. It is also a tool for ecological permanence in challenging environments. The early life of a snake is marked by high mortality. Hatchlings are already born equipped to act, but that doesn't mean safety. They need to avoid predators, find small prey, regulate temperature, and learn the rhythm of the habitat with almost no subsequent care in most species. This vulnerability helps to show why healthy populations depend on functional environments, not just the survival of adults. A large part of the conflict between humans and snakes arises from habitat fragmentation. Roads, wildfires, land development, and intensive agriculture compress populations into smaller areas and increase dangerous encounters. The snake did not invade our lives in the moral sense of the word. Often it was us who cut off its ancestral route. When the ecological space breaks down, the risk grows for both sides. A more intelligent coexistence depends on trained professionals, environmental education, and clear removal protocols. Killing every snake found does not solve the problem. In many cases, it only repeats it. Where there is responsible management, local information, and respect for the animal's behavior, accidents decrease and the ecological function is maintained. Between panic and negligence, there is a much more efficient path: applied knowledge. Traditional peoples, rural inhabitants, and researchers accumulate valuable observations about snake behavior throughout the seasons. Recognizing this knowledge is not romanticism. It is a method. Those who live daily with the territory understand patterns of encounters, activity times, and areas of higher risk. When formal science and local experience work together, coexistence improves, and conservation becomes more than just theory. After understanding the role of snakes in the functioning of biomes, the most contradictory layer of all emerges. These animals have been transformed into symbols of wisdom, curse, healing, and fear throughout human history. Today, while many still treat them as absolute enemies, science finds in them valuable medical and biological answers. The next section brings together myth, medicine, human threat, and the future. Few creatures have been as loaded with meaning by human imagination as snakes. In very different civilizations, they have emerged as guardians, messengers, symbols of rebirth, power, fertility, or destruction. At the same time they were venerated, serpents also became images of temptation, betrayal, and moral danger. In many cultures, they came to represent the subtle threat, that which does not come making noise, but waits for the exact moment to act. The shedding of skin greatly contributes to this symbolic aura. To the human eye, few processes seem as close to the idea of rebirth. The snake sheds an old layer and emerges with a renewed appearance, as if it has escaped from its previous form. Not by chance, the snake also became one of the most enduring symbols of healing. The association between poison and remedy, danger and knowledge, has crossed centuries until reaching modern medicine. Today we know that snake venoms are true biochemical libraries. Each species can gather molecules with very specific effects on blood pressure, coagulation, pain, nerve signaling, and tissue integrity. The antivenom is one of the most important responses that science has developed from this knowledge. To treat poisonings, it was necessary to deeply understand the action of venoms and produce specific biological antidotes. Beyond what has already been transformed into treatment, many compounds are still being studied for potential applications in coagulation, pain, neurology, and the cardiovascular system. Not every useful molecule will become a drug. The influence of snakes goes beyond medicine. Their locomotion inspires robots capable of entering narrow spaces, navigating obstacles, and exploring environments where wheels or legs would be inefficient. Despite this, the public image of snakes remains trapped in exaggerations. Sensationalist media, popular stories, and out-of-context videos have reinforced the idea that they live to attack humans. This portrayal oversimplifies the actual behavior of the group. Human fear is not entirely irrational. Some snakes are indeed dangerous, and underestimating them would be a serious mistake. The problem arises when every encounter is interpreted as a deliberate attack. In many cases, the snake reacts because it has been stepped on, cornered, surprised, or handled. While human fear remains strong, real threats to snakes are rapidly increasing. Habitat loss, fragmentation, roads, fires, and urban expansion are destroying routes, shelters, and breeding sites. Many species cannot simply change their environment overnight. Frequent or intense fires pose an even more serious threat than they appear. They remove cover, reduce food, expose eggs and chicks, and force risky displacements. Even species capable of using burrows or crevices may not survive when the entire landscape collapses thermally and ecologically. After the fire, silence hides losses that are difficult to measure: nests, prey, territories, and compromised future generations. Wildlife trafficking adds another serious problem. Rare, colorful, or large snakes become targets for collecting and illegal trade, fueling destructive removals and mortality during transport. In addition to the direct damage to natural populations, this market reinforces the idea that the animal exists to be owned and displayed. Direct persecution remains among the most common threats. Countless snakes die simply for being seen, even when they do not pose an imminent attack. This cultural reflex eliminates the animal and preserves the ignorance that generated the act. Where environmental education improves, impulsive reactions decrease. There are, however, concrete answers. Rescue centers, rehabilitation programs, population monitoring, and release protocols help reduce unnecessary losses. Tracking studies show how different species use space, where they cross roads, and at what times conflict increases. Reconnecting habitats is especially important for this group. Many snakes depend on mosaics of shelter, thermoregulation, hunting, and reproduction distributed throughout the landscape. When all of this breaks down, they become trapped in small pockets, exposed to roadkill, predation, and genetic loss. Conservation and public health need to go hand in hand. When the population knows how to prevent accidents, seek help without delay, and avoid dangerous practices, both people and snakes have a better chance of survival. Reducing human suffering does not weaken wildlife protection. On the contrary, citizen science can also contribute significantly. Responsibly recorded observations help map distribution, seasonality, and critical meeting areas. This transforms curiosity into useful data for research and management. Of course, sensitive species require caution with location disclosure. Protecting snakes is not about defending an isolated group for personal preference. It is about maintaining a functional network of relationships among prey, predators, vegetation, climate, and nutrients. Some species are generalists, while others are highly specialized. Both are important. Generalists help stabilize the system through flexibility. In the ocean, the risks also grow. Pollution, warming, reef alteration, and bycatch affect sea snakes in ways that are still not fully understood. As they receive less public attention than turtles or marine mammals, the decline may advance in silence. Social invisibility is a powerful threat. What almost no one monitors, almost no one protects with the necessary urgency. Perhaps the greatest human error has been to look at the serpent only as a symbol. When we do this, we fail to see the concrete animal, a highly specialized vertebrate, essential to many biomes, relevant to medicine, and capable of inspiring new technologies and scientific questions. From deep origins in the Cretaceous to refined anatomy, from the most frightening species to their silent role in ecological balance, snakes have traversed this documentary as a rare synthesis of extreme adaptation and practical importance. They are frightening because they are efficient, and they are efficient because millions of years have perfected every detail of their bodies. After everything we've seen, it is clear that protecting them is not a favor to nature. It is protecting the complexity that keeps life itself in balance. Follow our channel for a series of documentaries about the most incredible animals on the planet. Like the video, share it, and follow us. Until next time.